Hard to ignore at this point. Kaylee McGee-White, your thoughts?
Well, I think it's, first of all, very ironic that Biden can't even remember the conversation that he just had with Robert Hur, where Robert Hur said he has a very bad memory. So that makes a lot of sense. And I was actually wondering, why did Beau Biden come up in this interview in the first place? And now Hur is saying that Biden was the one who brought it up. But the White House could very easily clear this up by releasing the transcript of the conversation with Hur. If they really want to prove that Biden's mental state is as sure as they're claiming it is, then release the transcript. Or better yet, have Biden sit down and take the cognitive exam that the White House is saying that he's not going to sit for. If you want to clear up concerns about the president's mental fitness, then be transparent. Do as much as you can to prove that he is well, because right now it does not appear that he is.
Yeah, they were very clear, Rebecca. Yeah, he's going to have a physical, but that physical will not include a cognitive test.
You know, Maria, in the law, we call this an ad hominem attack. When you cannot defend your position, to Katie's point, when you cannot defend your position, you simply attack the person who's bringing up the point. So this is what they're saying. Why are you requiring that we have this test done? Why are the American people aren't questioning whether or not, he's senile or incompetent or literally just mentally not there any longer? I hate to say all those things, but the bottom line is people can see it for themselves. Maria, they've seen enough interviews. They've seen him confuse the Egyptian president for the Israeli. They've seen all of these things consistently over and over, and they are not going to buy the media's line that everything is fine and please stop talking about it.
Yeah, what you're referring to is he's there in a press conference trying to defend his mental capacity, Mark, and while doing so, he mixes up the president of Mexico with the president of Egypt.
And you know, that was a debacle of a press conference. And to Kaylee, to your point about trying to clear up any concerns about his mental fitness, that was the purpose of that debacle of a press conference last week, where he actually went out there and he proved that he's not cognitively fit. I mean, he proved the exact opposite. Not only did he mix up the president of Egypt with Mexico, but he also forgot where he got the rosary from that he wears in honor of Beau's death. Like, I mean, for all of his complaining about the media and special counsel Robert Hur potentially bringing his son's death up, he has no idea. I mean, he cannot remember what flavor ice cream he ate, as a snack last night.
Well, and this is going to be the problem for the Biden campaign is I don't know how you move forward from this, because now every single public event he has, every interaction, every press conference is going to be viewed through this lens. Because what Robert Hur has done is he has put into writing what many in the Democratic establishment have known, as Joe Rogan was saying, but were not willing to say out loud, which is that he is not fit to serve out the rest of this year, let alone another 4 years. You can't put that back in the box anymore. No. It is out in the open for everyone to see.
Well, one of the issues really, in my view, is the national security threat of all of this, because we're recognizing it, obviously, so is our audience, obviously, but you know who else is real focused on it is Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and all of the other adversaries that we're dealing with all day long, every day. And that's really when it becomes a national security risk.
Yeah, and Putin just made a comment about how he wants to see Joe Biden reelected because Biden is more predictable. He can control the outcome.
Oh, and I assure you, China also wants their guy in there again as well.
No doubt.
Yeah, China is, and may very well likely try to intercept and interfere. Welcome back. Time for the Morning Buzz. The House Judiciary Committee posting a series of Valentine's Day memes on X. One of them, memes blasting President Biden's handling of the border, writing, quote, "You open my heart the way Biden opens the border." The White House then responded with this poem. It reads, "Roses are red, violets are blue. The border deal was crushed because of you." Kaylee, they're making jokes about this, but these are very serious issues.
These are very serious issues. And you know what? To see this from the White House, it reminds me of when Biden made the promise back in 2020 that the adults were going to be back in charge.
Yeah.
And this is what we get, Valentine's Day memes of him attacking the speaker. But you're right. This is a very serious issue. The fact that the White House refuses to engage with House Republicans on the border crisis is a very serious problem that has to be addressed.
So dumb. Your thoughts, Rebecca?
I just want to scream as a lawyer. Cognitive dissonance is what comes to mind, because I don't know how many people have to look at the American public in the face and tell them there is nothing that this administration needs to fix this problem. Remain in Mexico. Resend all the executive orders that rescinded Trump's executive orders to deal with the border, and fix it. There is nothing. Okay, think about this. Nothing has been passed except for the Infrastructure Act.
No, nothing.
So nothing has changed from Trump's policies to Biden's policies in Congress except for the executive orders.
Right.
So for this administration to keep over and over and over jamming down the American people's throat, it's Congress's fault because they haven't given us the authority. People, stop lying. Everyone can see your lies.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, Mark, unfortunately, when Joe Biden walked into the Oval Office, he overturned all of Trump's executive orders, which included all the security at the border.
Absolutely.
So you can't turn around and say, I need help, I need Congress to give me the power. We know what you've done.
Correct. And I think the American people deserve to see the love letters that President Biden received from the Mexican cartels. I think we all need to see those love letters on the day after Valentine's Day.
It's sick that the Mexican cartels, these dangerous drug cartels, they are the one operating the border. They are the ones who are deciding who comes in and who doesn't come into America.
Right.
We are no longer in control at this point.
Really sad
unfortunate
stuff. Yeah, quick break and then more independent voters making it clear they want Donald J. Trump back in the Oval Office. It's the hot topic of the hour and it's coming up next. Welcome back. Good Thursday morning, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. I'm Maria Bartiromo. I hope you're having a good morning. It is Thursday, February 15th. It is just before 7 a.m. on the button on the East Coast. Time for the hot topic of the hour. The New York Times is out with the results of a new focus group. The outlet speaking with 13 undecided independent voters about the 2024 presidential election and top voter issues. 11 of the 13 voters said that they were leaning toward former President Donald Trump over President Biden. According to the New York Times, most of the voters' comments indicated they, quote, did not feel they were in good hands with Mr. Biden. And they did not trust that they would be, using words like senile, unfit, and disingenuous to describe Joe Biden. While the group viewed Mr. Trump negatively, some people suggested that the country was on its toes more with him in office. This, as new Fox News polls show, independent voters in swing states Michigan and North Carolina also favor Trump over Biden. 43% of independent voters in Michigan said that they favor the Republican frontrunner, compared to 34% who say they favor Biden. In North Carolina, 48% of independents say that they support Trump. 37% are backing Biden. New polls this morning, Kaylee. Your reaction?
Well, this confirms what has been very clear over the past several months, which is that Trump is dominating in these battleground states in a way that he never has before. In fact, Joe Biden is actually running lower than behind where Hillary Clinton was at in 2016. So he's doing worse than Hillary was at this point in the 2016 race, which is pretty stunning. Now, the thing that I think that Republicans need to be on their guard here is we're looking at some of the results that have just come from the New York special election. Biden is doing very badly in the polls, and yet the Democrat candidate in that race was still able to win. I look at Michigan, which is where I'm from. Gretchen Whitmer is about 10 points more popular than Joe Biden is. So the warning here is that we can't overestimate Trump's appeal, even if he is doing well in the polls, because what we've seen over the past couple of cycles is that no matter how unpopular Joe Biden gets, no matter how much voters say that they disapprove of the way he's running the country, many of them still vote for Democrats. Many of them still say that they support people like Gretchen Whitmer. So we can't overestimate Trump here. I think that he's much stronger than he was back in 2020, but there is a bit of a warning in there in the polls for Republicans.
Well, we can't underestimate what lengths the Democrats will go to undermine Donald Trump. I mean, the hatred is so severe. We've got a new Gallup poll, though, that finds immigration and the economy are the two leading issues, the reasons Americans disapprove of President Biden's job performance. The poll finding 54% of Americans disapprove of his job performance, while just 41% say they approve. 47% of those voters disapprove, citing policy issues. 19% said that immigration and the open border is why they disapprove of the Biden presidency. 9% pointed to the economy, as Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen claims Americans are confident in the economy despite mounting layoffs and inflation. Here's what she said yesterday. Watch.
This speaks to people feeling increased confidence about their economic situations and about the economy. There's no better way to judge whether people feel optimistic than whether they'd start a small business. You just don't do that if you don't feel like things are getting better.
Mark, look, it's a fair point about small business, but at the end of the day, we're seeing all this money sloshing around. It's fiscal stimulus, and that's been the one key for consumers.
Yeah,
that's going to go away at some point.
It is, and it's already going away for lower income consumers, because lower income consumers, they rely on the forced savings vehicle of tax refunds, which isn't the most intelligent thing to do, but that is what they rely on, and tax refunds are already down 50% year over year through the first 2 weeks of tax filing season. When you look at the economy, obviously, inflation has been one of the biggest issues. Wages haven't kept up with inflation. Housing's unaffordable. So there's a number of issues with the economy. But it also seems like the American people in general are getting sick and tired of President Biden and this administration insulting our intelligence.
Yes.
How dare you go on and put together a Super Bowl commercial talking about shrinkflation?
Yeah.
You created this.
Right.
It's your doing. I don't care if your ice cream carton got smaller. That's your fault.
It's unbelievable. I mean, the worst and the most ludicrous of all was the other day when Joe Biden came out and he said, well, now every day until Election Day, people will know that the border is open because of Trump.
Yeah.
What?
MAGA Republicans.
Or blaming corporations.
Do you think we're that moronic?
Yeah. Or the constant need to blame corporations for the price increases, as if it was not his policies that forced corporations to raise their prices in the first place.
Yeah, it's really, it shows this complete just feeling that the people are stupid. I mean, that we don't actually understand what goes on. Look at these numbers. Consumer prices are up 17.5% since Biden walked into the Oval Office. Gasoline up 28%. Credit card debt 40% higher. And when you look at other things like food, it's up also in the double digits. Rebecca.
Yeah, Maria, I mean, I think that's what people know. That's what they're talking about when they're going to go to the voting. And, if you look at the New York Times poll, 11 of those people literally said they would pick Trump over Biden, even though they necessarily didn't like him, just because 12 out of 13 people said they were going to vote because of the prices at the grocery store. Like, it wasn't inflation. It wasn't thing. They said specifically prices at the grocery store. So I think that this administration has a problem because their record is economically, from my perspective, extremely abysmal. The border policy is abysmal. We now have almost on the verge of 3 wars because China and Taiwan, that situation is happening there, because this administration is so weak economically, from a border crisis, from a global perspective, that we can't, all they can do is try to convince us that what our eyes are telling us is not true.
Yeah.
So lie and lie and lie to us.
And one of the first messages, I think, for our adversaries was the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And that really sparked China,
Absolutely.
Russia, and others to really get on the march against America. China's been undermining America ever since. Welcome back. It's time for the Word on Wall Street. Top investors watching your money. Joining me right now is Morgan Stanley Managing Director and Private Wealth Advisor Kathy Enswittle, as well as Mark Tapper and Rebecca Walser here in studio. Kathy, great to see you.
It's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining the conversation once again. We want to look at this market this morning where futures are indicated higher ahead of a pretty busy day again with earnings and data. Dow Industrial's up 36, the Nasdaq up 34. Deere reporting a double beat, cutting its 2024 profit forecast. However, take a look at the stock this morning on Deere on that profit cut down about 3%. Wendy's reporting a double miss, lowering full year profit forecast. The company says it has plans to invest $55 million in incremental breakfast advertising in the U.S. We're waiting on Roku and DraftKings. That happens after the bell. And then Cisco is a highlight this morning, Kathy, announcing it's going to cut more than 4,000 jobs from its global workforce, despite reporting a slight double beat on fourth quarter earnings. Stock is down about 4.5%. Have you changed your opinion on the macro story given the layoffs and the data that you're watching?
Yeah, well, I would say what we're looking for is the company earning, what are their earnings comprised of? Is it top line earnings, sales, which I think is very healthy for companies, but if they're making money by cutting expenses, you have to look and see why. Is it that there was too much fat to begin with? A lot of companies during COVID didn't lay off maybe when they should have. Or maybe there's a merger and acquisition going on and they're starting to think that there's some overlap and they need to reduce. So it's really about the underlying, which is why it's so important to think about the individual company and be as stock picker and not an overall market buyer.
So how has your allocation changed, Kathy?
Yeah, so we've reduced, personally, I've reduced clients' allocation from the typical 60-40, the old school theory, to more of 50% in equities, 25% in fixed income, and 25% in hedge strategies. And right now, with interest rates where they are and so much cash sitting in these high yield savings accounts, it is a good time to start thinking about when to leg into these markets, whether it's equity side or the fixed income side. It's a volatile market. I expect volatility to continue throughout the year and take opportunities where you see them.
Yeah, I mean, the opportunity was all for technology last year, Mark. Look at NVIDIA this morning reporting its hold investments in ARM, SoundHound AI, and biotech company Recursion Pharmaceuticals. The stock is soaring once again this morning. NVIDIA shares now at 739 and change on this reporting of these stakes. NVIDIA dethroning Google parent Alphabet to become Wall Street's third most valuable company, $2 to $3 trillion of the leading companies here. Your thoughts?
What a ride for
what
NVIDIA.
A ride.
I mean, last year NVIDIA was up like 240%. And a lot of people are like, well, they can't. No way they can do that again. They're up 50% in a month and a half so far this year. They came in at 1.2 trillion of market cap. They're already above 1.8 trillion. They're approaching 2 trillion. I mean, they are the king of AI.
Yes.
Obviously, they're making some investments in other AI automation companies. The ARM investment was disclosed. Now, if we remember back in 2020, NVIDIA tried to acquire ARM for $40 billion. The deal was shot down by regulators. Now they have a stake of like $150 million. It's not a big stake, but NVIDIA, without a doubt, is the king of AI. I'm counting right now 5 analyst price targets of $900 or higher, with the highest on the street being $1,273.
The targets keep going up, but would you buy into it here at these levels?
I own NVIDIA.
Yeah, I know. I buy it at 700.
So I said a year ago, if there's one stock I could own for the next 10 years, it would be NVIDIA.
Wow.
I would not be buying right now. What I will be doing is, when there are big rallies, I will be taking chips off the table and selling high. And then when, a $740 stock drops back down to $640, I will buy more. And I will continue to play that game because NVIDIA is a core position that I want to continue to hold, but I will be tactical about, buying and trimming the position.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Rebecca, you're nodding your head. You agree with that?
Well, yeah, because their CAGR that's projected just in the AI space is like 64% for the next decade. So their runway is just so massive because of the machine they've built, and they're so far ahead of it. I know AMD's trying to maybe get into that space, but they're just like, it's the first to the market. It's the first mover, and they just are going to enjoy that for a while, deservedly so. And so, it is hard to buy in at this top. I agree with Mark. We will have some major economic royals this year. I think that's when it'll trend back with the market overall. You can definitely get some buying opportunity there.
What's your take on the macro story, Rebecca? Where we've got the January retail sales coming out in about an hour and 15 minutes, 8:30 a.m. Eastern, month over month. Economists are expecting sales to be down 0.1%. Strip out auto sales are expected to be up 0.2%. Then we'll get the February NAHB housing market index this morning at 10 a.m. We'll get the PPI, producer price index, and housing starts and building permits tomorrow morning. And you're wondering when the stock market is going to catch up with the real economy. That's what you said earlier, right?
Yeah, Maria. I mean, to go specifically with PPI, we expect PPI to come in at 0.7, and that makes sense because January came in at 1%, and it should be coming down because global demand is coming down. And so as global demand comes down, obviously the manufacturing is going to come down in price, or the wholesale, obviously. When you're looking at the retail sales coming down, that also makes sense because I know that we were really shocked with the December credit card sales. We expected consensus was 15 billion to be added. We only got 1 billion. So it makes sense that retail sales will come down and it contract from where they were. And plus we had a beat in, January. It was 0.6 and we expected it to be 0.4. And then I'll just say with housing, year over year from 2022 to 2023, Maria, it increased 5.5%. Year over, the expectation now from 2023 to 2024 is a 2.8% increase. So the issue is it's still increasing even as these mortgage rates were so much more confiscatory, based on, long-term, lower for longer, 15 years of super low Fed funds rates. I mean, people expected more house. Now they had to trim the value. But it's still going up because the housing market is so short.
Yeah.
As far as the global macroeconomic picture between China and the situation of losing $7 trillion in market cap, you've got the UK right now announcing yesterday a slight recession. Japan is now in recession. So we're seeing, and and then Germany is basically deindustrializing. It's not economically viable. So we've got a lot of problems. It started in Asia. It's moving to Europe. It will come here.
Kathy, does that concern you, this macro story that is expected to slow down? Does that work into your models in terms of how to allocate?
Absolutely. It does concern me, and that's why we've reduced the equity side of the equation, and we're increasing the fixed income side of the equation. Rates are just more favorable at this point, and there are a lot of things going on globally, and I do think that we are going to see some challenges ahead in the U.S. as well.
I mean, when you're looking at global issues and global hostilities, you have to believe, I do, that it is going to affect sentiment as well. All right, we will leave it there. Kathy Entwistle, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Mark Tepper, Rebecca Walser, you're with us all morning. We appreciate that. Quick break, and then interest on the record high national debt could threaten the stability of the economy. John Ratcliffe is spot on. Kayleigh, your reaction?
He is. And of course, Russia, of course, China, of course, Iran would want Biden in the White House, because not only can they rely on the fact that Biden doesn't know where he is or who he is on a daily basis, but they know that he's not going to do anything. He can't ever show strength. And it's not a coincidence that we have multiple foreign crises happening at the same time under this president. You have Iran seriously ramping up its own nuclear production because of the fact that they've been able to make billions from the Biden administration not enforcing the embargoes against Iran. You have this new Russian national security threat, which is believed to be nuclear satellites that are meant to take out other countries' satellites. You have, obviously, the turmoil in the Middle East. You have China ramping up its own threats against Taiwan. None of this happened under the Trump administration. And you have to wonder, well, why is that? I think the answer is pretty obvious.
Yes, it is obvious. Let's go back and see Joe Biden and how he has treated Russia and China. He did not enforce the sanctions on Russia. Russia was able to have whatever it needed to attack Ukraine. Same thing with Iran. Did not enforce the sanctions on Iran, enabling Iran to generate billions in revenue and give it to places like Hamas. So groups like Hamas. And China, first thing he does when he walks into the Oval Office, he cancels the China initiative, right? I mean, that was an initiative under President Trump and Secretary Mike Pompeo, where you were actually seeing indictments for those people stealing information from the United States.
Yes,
Rebecca.
Absolutely, Maria. And, by their fruits, you will know them, right? And if we look at this administration's foreign policy and geopolitical fruits, it's nothing but, chaos. I really believe that we're looking at a Chinese invasion of Taiwan soon because, when you have a $7 trillion market cap loss and your real estate market is literally liquidating as we speak, you look for war. War is what comes next when you're trying to dissuade an economic problem. So war comes next. And this is the exact administration they want to do that under. Yeah. And just like Kayleigh said, there was not this problem with Trump. And then let's skip over Trump and look at Obama. He too had multiple wars. So what everyone in the world is telling us is Trump is the one that scares them and will actually make them get in line with their behavior according to how the United States wants them to act.
And John Ratcliffe has said many times, Mark, that China will interfere in the election that much because it wants Biden to stay.
Well, I mean, look, Biden is better for everyone except America. Kayleigh, you mentioned it, Russia, China, Iran, right? I mean, it's Biden in office is better for everyone except for us. It's his America Last strategy. And our adversaries are licking their chops at the possibility of another 4 years of President Biden. Yes, he's predictable. It's incredibly predictable that you can walk all over him. Whether you just watch him on TV, whether he's falling upstairs, falling off a bike, shaking invisible hands, trying to exit stage left looking like a Roomba. I mean, look, it's not good. And our adversaries can see it, and they see weakness.
So the question becomes, why is he so soft on our adversaries? Is he compromised because he accepted money from our foreign adversaries like China? Breaking news this morning as House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer told me moments ago exclusively that he issued a subpoena to American Express this morning. He suggested that the Biden family members were using Amex cards and China was paying their bills. Here is Comer with me earlier this morning. Are you subpoenaing companies like Visa, MasterCard, or the major banks like Bank of America, JP Morgan? Can you give us some clarity on who you are sending subpoenas to?
They would be major credit card companies like American Express.
Express.
Companies like that.
Got it. All right. American Express. So you sent the subpoena to American Express this morning?
Yes.
All right. right, let's get reaction. This is an explosive story and breaking news. Kaylee, your reaction?
Well, we've already said that this would for sure establish the money trail that Comer has been trying to pin down and identify. And again, it just goes towards this pattern of Hunter Biden never paid for anything himself, apparently. He was getting all of his bills paid for by his sugar brother, by his dad, by his uncle. Everyone was paying for Hunter Biden. The question is why? He was making a significant income from these business ventures with foreign companies. So why did he seem to never have any money of his own? Why did he rack up so much debt? And why were these companies paying for him?
Yeah.
I mean, we all know why.
Yeah, but remember there was an email to his daughter saying, I'm paying the family bills. Right. So he's taking in this money from adversaries, according to the Oversight Committee, and then he's paying the family bills.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if there's a direct link between that money coming in and obviously paying the American Express bill. But I found it was very interesting, Maria, that when you asked Visa, JP Morgan, Bank of America, he specifically came back and said American Express.
We're waiting to hear how American Express responds, Rebecca.
Well, I hope they cooperate because obviously they've had to push them to cooperate before.